Hello, I think this is day 4 of my 90-day video challenge to try to overcome my fear of being seen and my fear of sharing my thoughts and stuff like that. Why don't I ramble a little bit about GHK-Cu, which is a copper peptide that has a lot of science behind it that I have recently become obsessed with, in love with. I don't know what you would say. But GHK-Cu is a topical form of copper that remodels collagen. And why that is so cool is because that allows us to do things that previously we didn't really have a good way to do. For example, if you have any kind of scar tissue on your body, GHK-Cu will turn that scarred collagen back into healthy collagen that is cross-linked as healthy skin is. That's what a scar is. It is collagen that is not properly cross-linked. And so it's all rough and not stretchy, and it can even be raised like a hypertrophic scar. But essentially the collagen is just damaged and it's not healthy collagen. And what GHK-Cu does is it goes in and it remodels that collagen back into healthy collagen. That's really good because if you have any damaged collagen from being alive and going outside in the sun over the course of your life, GHK-Cu will remodel that damaged collagen back into healthy, vibrant, fresh, youthful collagen. Pretty incredible stuff. And it works at extremely low concentration too, like 0.5% concentration. So you need such a small amount of it for it to do incredible things. But it works long term because collagen remodeling is very slow. You know, it can take like 30 days for your body to produce new collagen. So it's really like a long-term thing. But I think it's pretty incredible, and it's pretty low cost too. And I think most people have probably never heard of GHK-Cu. So that's why I felt like talking about it. You're welcome. I use it every day. And, I actually only started using it maybe a few weeks ago because I only recently found out about it. So I'm excited to see how my skin transforms in, 6 months of using it every day. That would be pretty impressive because I have lots of sun damage on my arms. You probably can't see in this lighting. No, you can't see anything in this lighting. But I do. I have a lot of sunspots on my arms, a lot of like crepey skin, and I'm only 31. I'm curious if I could get a good. Yeah, you really can't see it in this lighting, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how my arms transform over time because my forearms, I just have never put sunscreen on them and they look much older than the rest of my body. What else do I want to talk about? I don't know if I already talked about this, but I've been using ChatGPT recently for self-analysis. I really like to input like a lot of background information about my relationship with my family, my parents, my siblings, etc. And then ask it things like, based on what you know about these past experiences, what kind of defense mechanisms or coping strategies do you think I might have developed? Or like, what are my blind spots? Or what do you think I'm delusional about or misinformed about? Or etc., etc. I've just been asking it all sorts of questions to try to understand my shadow side, the part of me that I keep hidden, even, not even necessarily hidden on purpose. I may just be unaware of these problems that I may have, blind spots. That's why they're called blind spots. I'm just not even aware of them. So that's been really helpful. I've always been really big into trying to understand myself and try to integrate my shadow side. I don't know how I feel about that verbiage, that terminology. shadow side. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if I like that verbiage, but my underdeveloped side, my immature, unevolved side, you know, I think, why don't I talk about my spiritual views? Because I was raised as an atheist, and I am not religious, but I think I'm spiritual. I'm not really sure what it means to be spiritual, but I do think about the meaning of life a lot. And I think there is no meaning. I think whatever meaning it has is whatever meaning you give it. And so, in my opinion, the meaning that I have chosen to give life is to try to be as authentic as you can possibly be, which is hard to do in a world that does not reward authenticity and frequently punishes authenticity. I think the meaning of life is to self-actualize, and in order to do that, you first must understand who you are so that you can then be who you are. And I really think that's the whole point. And in addition to radically being yourself in a world that hates it when you be yourself, I think the second part of that is to love others unconditionally and allow them and encourage them to be themselves also. And I think that any kind of ideology that divides people is antagonistic to our life's purpose. So things like religion, socioeconomic class, nationality, various different cultural things, anything that divides people and gives people permission to hate other groups, that is antagonistic to the meaning of life, in my opinion. It's antagonistic to our collective lives' purposes, you know? Like, I think we all have the same purpose, which is to be our authentic selves and to love others for their authentic selves. And I think anything that stands in the way of that is antagonistic towards that goal, of course. I wouldn't say it's evil because I don't believe in good and evil, but I just believe in authenticity versus inauthenticity. And I think anything that harms others is probably not authentic and certainly not conducive to achieving our collective purpose. I've also been reading recently about the concept of a fractal universe. You know, people often describe time as being cyclical. But in a fractal universe, time does not repeat, but it rhymes. So you don't see the same things happening over and over, but you see similar things happening over and over, which is often what people mean anyway, but with more correct verbiage. When they say, you know, history repeats, they don't literally mean that it repeats. They mean that it echoes, is what they mean. And it does in a fractal universe. And the fact that we're able to see that over and over again throughout human history is evidence that we live in a fractal universe. And what is a fractal? There is this equation, z equals z squared plus c, which is the Mandelbrot equation. And if you Google a Mandelbrot set, what you will see, I'll just insert a picture, you don't have to Google anything, is this really cool image. It is a never-ending, intricate pattern that repeats itself at different scales. It has a self-similarity to it. That means any part of the fractal, when zoomed in, will look similar to the whole shape. They are commonly found in nature and can be generated using mathematical equations. So essentially the point of a fractal is it has a self-similarity to it at every scale. So no matter how much you zoom in or zoom out, it will always look similar, which is pretty cool. And what that means, essentially, if we consider that maybe time is a fractal or maybe our universe is a fractal, is that at every single scale of the universe, there's a sort of self-similarity. So you will see patterns on the small scale that reflect patterns at the macro scale. So what are the repercussions of that? What would that mean if that were true? That would mean that patterns we see in the cosmos on the macro scale reflect patterns that we see at every other scale. So at the human level, at the planetary level, at the microscopic level, there is a theory that the Big Bang that initiated the existence of matter and antimatter was potentially caused by a universe splitting into two universes, similar to cell division or mitosis. I really like that theory because it aligns with the possibility that we live in a fractal universe. But it also means that whatever you do in your life has ripple effects that impact the entire universe. Because in a fractal, again, it has a self-similarity to it. So whatever you do on the small scale impacts every other scale, including the macro scale. And so if we lived in a fractal reality, that would mean that every single person is contributing to this intricate pattern that we live in, this fabric that unfolds and loops back on itself throughout time, not quite in the exact same way, but in a way that is kind of echoed or self-similar. So I'm going to do more reading on fractal universe theory because I think it's super interesting. Maybe I'll make a more detailed video about that. I only just scratched the surface. Maybe that's enough talking for this video because I'm already at 15 minutes and yeah, I think that's good. You know, these videos don't have to be like, they don't have to be like super in-depth, you know, because they're just supposed to be daily check-ins. Me just practicing putting myself out there to become comfortable with expressing myself because I have never really done that throughout my life, if you can believe that. Some of us are just really kept to ourselves and really introverted and shy, and we just stay that way our whole lives. But I don't want to be like that for my whole life. I feel like it holds me back from self-actualizing. It holds me back from living fully authentically. And I feel like that's my life's purpose, and I think it's everyone else's too. So if I'm to fully self-actualize, I need to get comfortable with being fully authentic. And this is how I am choosing to get comfortable with it. So I will see you in the next video, possibly. Goodbye.